Alright, this is Iron Man 234. Iron Man battles together with the Amazing Spider-Man. Even though it had been cancelled for a few years by this point, David Miscellaneous basically kept Spider-Man team-up alive in spirit. This is about 80% of a straight-up Spider-Man team-up issue, with the other 20% being Iron Man shagging a hot, crazy woman. Our writing is by David Miscellaneous. I've already hinted at that. Art is by Butch Jackson, and there is also Bob Layton inking and co-plotting. David Miscellaneous had a very long and iconic run on Iron Man in the early 80s. Rodney Dangerfield was even in an issue, but he eventually left the book and Neil O'Dennis took over. But then after he was done, David Miscellaneous returns. Bob Layton was also involved with a lot of the David Miscellaneous stuff. Their return more or less kicked into high gear with the Armor Wars story early on. I haven't read much of any of their Iron Man after Armor Wars because the ending of Armor Wars didn't land with me, but I can't remember much of what or why beyond the crap Alan Windsor Smithy Dream issues. This issue and the SeaWorld Attacks one are my only insight into this part of David Miscellaneous and Bob Layton's run after Armor Wars. We are at a trade expo, and I should alert you early on, Butch Jackson draws attractive women. This woman, the one at the bottom of this page, probably only ever appears on this page ever, but she deserves a mini-series. This issue, as I said, is very traditional team-up material. Peter Parker is at the Trade Expo, and I love how Butch Jackson draws Peter Parker. He looks like the Peter Parker from Spider-Man the Animated Series. Okay, enough fluff. This was one of those back issues I got when I was a teenager. Blah, 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 new Thunderbolts. You know the deal. I wanted ad issues with appearances of Thunderbolts characters, but I eventually was put off getting them because it was a hassle, and especially after 2 of the 3 Radiation Dude back issues I got were rubbish. This is the one Radiation Dude issue of the 3 that wasn't shit. We find Radiation Dude in his civilian identity, now working for Iron Man's main industry competitor. There's a lot more backstory to the company. It used to be Robert Downton Abbey Jr. Industries, but he lost it in the Neil O'Dennis run, and now what was once his company is still active and competing in the same market. I pick fault with this though. I don't believe that Iron Man. I don't believe that either of these Iron Men, Robert Downton Abbey Jr. or Rhodey Rhodes. I think both of them know Radiation Dude's fucking real name. He's one of the Avengers' hardest enemies. Are you telling me that Robert Downton Abbey Jr. got so monged out on Jack Daniels that he forgot Radiation Dude's name? And Rhodey Rhodes, when he was Iron Man, he fought Radiation Dude. And I just don't buy that either of them don't recognise this supervillain who isn't even disguising himself and is using his real name. I think this issue is okay. I generally like it. It's a bit underwhelming, but it's always had the credit of being more enjoyable than the other two issues with Radiation Dude that I got. I think a big reason I like it is Peter Parker. David Michelinie's Peter Parker too. This is very much in line with his work on Amazing Spider-Man with Todd McFarlane. It feels like this really resonates with the portrayal. It's very in keeping with the portrayal of Peter Parker's life in that book. And that is one of my favourite periods for Spider-Man and the whole Peter Parker setup. And I like Butch Jackson's art. Say hello to the art crazy woman. This is Kathy Day. This is my entire exposure to her. This issue. I know what she becomes and what she does, but based on this issue and her appearance here, I would be down with all her craziness. She is always wanting Robert Downton Abbey Jr. to have sex with her. She'll break into his house and get naked for him. She'll break into his office and do the same thing. She'll break into his car, his boat, his private jet, whatever, and she'll get naked for him because she wants to have sex with him. She is possessive of him, she is spoiled, she's generally a bad woman, but I would happily put up with it. Robert Downton Abbey Jr. gets annoyed and he keeps blowing her off and then tries to get a restraining order and other things like that. And so she shoots him. It would have been easier to just keep shagging her, for fuck's sake. Look at her. She's worth the nuisance. Maybe if Robert Downton Abbey Jr. would fuck her in his office, he'd get more work done afterwards, and he wouldn't be so attracted to the bottle. Radiation Dude, his goals and motivations are as inconsistent as they always are. He can sense the radioactive spider blood in Peter Parker, and he wants to learn more about it. So here is Spider-Man versus Radiation Dude. Radiation Dude is wearing a modified version of his costume that he never wears again. The fight isn't great, to be honest. The thing is, I'm not even sure if I buy this. Radiation Dude can use his control over radioactive energies to weaken Spider-Man. He can nerf Spider-Man's powers. I would assume that stuff like Spider-Man's muscles and his agility, while they were developed from his spider bite, they are not entirely hinged upon the radiation in his blood. I tried to think if he had ever gone up against Radiation Dude another time, and then I realised he had in Kurt Busey's Silver Age Spider-Man retcon series, and I stopped wanting to know. My big problem with this issue, even though from the sounds of it all I have are complaints, we have a couple of pages here that feel unnecessary, and like they are drawing page time away from our hero-villain confrontation. It's nice to see Kathy for another page, and this maybe does set up her insanity, but you would have to be Nostradamus to cite this page as the definitive statement of her clinginess. Then we have very needless excuses to get Iron Man involved in the situation. He's a superhero. You don't need to explain why this is personally relevant to him. And then a page like this, just reminds me and presents another opportunity for me to bitch about what happened with Rhodey. David Michelinie's very first move on his return to Iron Man was to utterly remove the idea of Rhodey as an Iron Man. He made it so that Rhodey was badly injured while wearing the armour and now refuses to wear it. David Michelinie just wanted Rhodey to be like Rhodey had been in his previous run, a very capable civilian assistant. And it is absolutely a demotion. It is insulting, and it is fucking horrible for representation, but nobody talks about that. We had a black Iron Man. We had an amazing black superhero that was one of Marvel's most recognisable characters, technically. Robert Downton Abbey Jr. deserved the win in issue 200. He needed to put on his armour and beat the menace that had caused him his greatest defeat. After that, though, why is Robert Downton Abbey Jr. still Iron Man? Robert Downton Abbey Jr. has proved what he set out to prove. He should have relinquished the role full-time to Rhodey Rhodes. Robert Downton Abbey Jr., he should have been the technological genius providing assistance to the new Iron Man. He should be the one who sometimes puts on the armour to help out. Rhodey Rhodes was the Iron Man we were robbed of. And he would have gone down in history as one of the greatest legacy characters and among Marvel's best examples of representation. He'd be there with Black Panther and Luke Cage's. Instead, he gets to run around as little more than a manservant to a rich white man. How's that for representation? Eventually, he'll become War Machine, but too little too late. He should have been the main Iron Man. I think part of the reason I don't review all that much Iron Man is because I always default to my pro-Rhodey stance. Iron Man, the white man one, he goes to investigate Radiation Dude's thing. Radiation Dude has Spider-Man tied down to an operating table in his lab. Radiation Dude is going to try and extract the radioactive blood to study it and sell it. He has also unmasked Spider-Man. He has taken off Spider-Man's mask, and that isn't focused on at all. Iron Man breaks in and battles the villain. The fight is good, but I wanted more. That is where my criticism of those pages come in. Spider-Man, he gets free. And so we have a good, old-fashioned Spider-Man team-up. Spider-Man and Iron Man. And then Spider-Man, he puts on a protective suit to fight. And then the heroes encase Radiation Dude in lead and freeze him. Hasta la vista, baby. That's the end, though. If you are looking for the 151st issue of Spider-Man Team Up, you can grab this. It's definitely in that mould. I don't mind it in that light, but otherwise I find it lacks something to really make it special. I'll still give it the 7 thumbs up I think it deserves.